Today, Russia is sending missiles into Ukrainian cities. And today, Russia is sending planes full of athletes into Europe.
Athletes from Russia and Belarus will be able to compete under their own national flags.
While thousands of Ukrainians live without limbs because of Russia's war, Russian athletes are allowed to compete. Soldiers who tried to kill Ukrainians now competing against them on the world stage. But this is nothing new. Russia has weaponized sport for decades. In 2014, the world watched the glittering Winter Olympics at Sochi. It was a perfect image of Russia: fireworks, unity, celebration. And just 4 days later, Russian troops annexed Crimea.
Pro-Russian forces are tightening their grip on Crimea this morning. Troops stormed a Ukrainian naval base.
Sports creates the illusion of peace, and dictators know exactly how to use it. In 2022, Russian athletes competed in the Beijing Winter Olympics.
The Russian Olympic Committee will send 212 athletes to the Beijing Winter Games from Moscow to Beijing.
Athletes competed, flags waved, diplomats applauded, and just 4 days later, Russia launched the largest invasion of Europe since the Second World War.
Ukraine woke to explosions around the capital.
But Russia's manipulation of sport runs even deeper. In 2016, investigations uncovered one of the largest doping scandals in sports history.
This morning, Russia received a 4-year ban for doping.
A massive state-sponsored doping program.
And this wasn't just athletes cheating, it was the Russian state itself. Government laboratories swapping urine samples, secret holes drilled through labs. Athletes were chemically engineered to win medals, all to project one image of a powerful, victorious Russia. But this strategy didn't begin with Putin. In 1936, Adolf Hitler hosted the Berlin Olympics. The Nazi regime transformed the Games into a propaganda spectacle. They built monumental stadiums. They removed anti-Jewish signs from the streets. It was the first ever Olympic Games to be broadcast on television. International press praised a peaceful Germany. And 2 years later, Europe was at war.
Ladies and gentlemen, the invasion of Western Europe has begun.
Authoritarian regimes have always used sport in the same way: to sanitize violence, to normalize brutality, and to convince the world that everything is fine. Some countries are boycotting the opening ceremony, but boycotting and words aren't enough. Airspace has to close, money has to stop flowing, and Russian influence has to come to an end. Because until Russia is removed from sport, until the world stops pretending, then nothing has changed. So, just weeks ago at the Winter Olympics in Italy, a Ukrainian skeleton racer was disqualified before the races even began. His crime was wearing a helmet showing the faces of Ukrainian athletes that had been murdered by the Russians during the full-scale invasion. The International Olympic Committee basically said that his helmet violated the rules about political messaging in sport. And this decision has rightfully caused outrage across the world, especially here in Ukraine, and has raised questions about Russian interference in the IOC, Russian interference in the Olympics. So I wanted to find out what he thinks about this ridiculous decision and how he feels about Russian interference in the Olympics. Why do you think they asked you to remove your helmet? What do you think the actual reason was? Because there's obviously the reason they claimed, which is neutrality, but what do you think the real reason actually was?
Neutrality is also like pretty, I would say, debatable, because in one way they allowed to use Russian flag, which is forbidden by the rules. So like you have straight violation of the rules for Italian athlete, not allowing our athletes to use form which includes map of Ukraine, official international map of Ukraine. So for me, like if you took all of that together, so I believe it's influence of pro-Russian power in IOC, and it's really sad to admit, but yeah, latest IOC decisions are discriminative towards Ukrainians, and they're very pro-Russian decisions. We saw in this Olympic Games it was huge numbers of Russian flags all over Olympics, in the audience and then on the helmet of athlete. US figure skater with Russian, how it's called, family ties. Yeah, his family members his parents was Russians, so they died in a airplane crash, and he was able also to honor them. At the same time, when I tried to honor my fellow athletes, I cannot do it. I was disqualified. So you see like very big difference in these decisions. So, and it's for me, it definitely looks like a discrimination towards Ukrainians, and it's not acceptable. And now these days, I can also admit that IOC leadership is destroying Olympic movement, destroying Olympic values, and it's really bad to see.
Do you think there's Russian money within the IOC leadership?
We should talk now about members of IOC members, people who are part of this system, and still a lot of Russians there. And Trapyshev is very active part of this movement. He is head of tennis federation in Russia, and guy who, after full-scale war started, he was also asked by a journalist, is he thinks that to make some military groups from professional Russian athletes, is it a good idea? And he was telling yes. So he told then in media back then in September, I believe, 2022, that yeah, he thinks that it's a really good idea. Despite that, he's still seen by IOC as a neutral guy. He is still being part of all the events. It's getting worse, so in all of that, definitely Russian government is involved. So social doping scandal, it was government program, so FSB was changing samples, and it's very political in Russia. Like sport is being very active part in propaganda and very effective tool, suddenly.
Why do you think Russians use sport specifically so much in their propaganda? Why do they really focus on sport?
Why? Because Russia is dictatorship and they want to conquer the world. It looks like that. They try to attack people and they try to increase their image as a country by using sport. They also used football championship, World Cup. It was, I believe, 19 or 20, but you can recheck it like dates. But also it was used and it was in Russia, and it was also used to increase image of country. And I also believe that Sochi Olympic Games was a great example of that. So they did Sochi Olympic Games. After that, few days later, it was finished. Crimea was occupied, and the reaction of the world was really quiet. Nobody cared about occupation of our territory, of our land.
Sterilized their image on the world stage first.
Yeah, because whole world was just a few weeks before united in Russia. It was like very good looking Olympic Games and all of that, and then suddenly, like 1 week after, like it's the most, like, biggest villain in the world. But yeah, so it's really harsh transition, and I think it was also one of the reasons why we don't have this huge reaction in the world back then. So sports being used in Russian propaganda for a while, and it was also no coincidence that full-scale war starts also right after Olympic Games, 24th February. So it was a few days after a closing ceremony. The same goes like in 2008 when they had military actions in Georgia. The same, like it was also tied to Olympic Games. And if you look like more precise, like so it's always like attached. So Olympic Games playing a big role in geopolitical situation also, and for many countries it's a very it's increasing image if you can hold Olympic Games, you can hold such a big event. And for me, it's not right to say that sport is out of politics. It's definitely not.
Going back to the moment where you were disqualified, what did you feel like on an emotional level at that exact moment? Just, realizing that you weren't going to be able to compete. Like, how did it feel on an emotional level? And how does it feel now looking back? Is it a moment of disappointment? Is it a moment of glory, of actual pride? How does it really feel?
It's very mixed feelings. And first of all, it was emptiness because it's right, like we were preparing for this Olympic Games for a long time. Many years, a lot of hours of the trainings per day, like each day. Normally we had 12 trainings per week, during preparation. It's huge amount of trainings, it's huge amount of effort. Many people were involved, so it's not only me, but it's also coaches, it's physiotherapists, and it's a huge amount of work. And it was taken away so easily by some discriminative interpretation of the rules. So and to be honest, I didn't even get a chance to violate these rules because I was suspended before it started, and definitely some emptiness. But at the same time, I was proud of myself that I didn't betray my principles, I didn't betray myself, and I didn't betray these athletes, because I still believe that they had all the rights to be there on my helmet on time of competition, and they should be able to be part of Olympic Games and the competition itself. And yeah, so it's a mixed feelings, but also at this time analyze like, oh, what I could do another, how I can change the situation. So if I use another helmet, and definitely even if I used another helmet, even if I won this medal in another helmet, definitely I would always think that no, it was not right, and I shouldn't do it. So I believe I did what at the time and till now I think it was right decision, and I wouldn't change anything in my decision.
So, are the Olympics corrupt?
Many things saying that it is, and we already saw a lot of scandals regarding place of Olympic bid, about Olympic bid, and countries who held Olympic Games. I believe it was Rio already. One of the high stated person, he was in court and he was judged, so he was guilty. And in his statements, he already admitted that he paid some bribes to get some votes that Rio hosting Olympic Games. So yeah, that I see is corrupted. But yeah, it would be nice to also see a little bit more investigations regarding that.
The Paralympics are taking place this weekend. Russia and Belarus are taking part, and they're doing it very proudly. And it seems like it's getting even more out of control with blatant Russian propaganda, the normalization of Russia. Yep. How do you feel seeing all this unfold now?
Yeah, it's out of control, and it's definitely it's crazy. In this time, like Russian and Belarusian Paralympic athletes, they don't even have like verification process. So it's also possible that in future we will see Russian military guys who were injured in this already war, full-scale war, that they're competing in Paralympic Games. It's not. It's possible, and it was admitted by spokesman of International Paralympic Committee already. Also by Rashkov. Rashkov he's president of Russian Paralympic Committee. He was already stated that more than 300 people are being part of national teams in Paralympic sports who was ex-military from this war already, from full-scale war in Ukraine. So basically, you can have like people who were killing Ukrainians in the front line. They've been injured, and now they will continue to do it in international sport by spreading propaganda. And it's crazy to admit, but it's just insanity. Yeah. So now basically, IOC with their actions and the International Paralympic Committee with their actions, they supporting aggressor and punish people who like defending their land, who is not attacking anyone, who is trying just to defend their land. So yeah, it's yeah, it's like that. So it's definitely a madness, and I don't know like how you can comment it like in other way, how you can try to to change kind of point of view, but because it's like pretty understandable. So you have aggressor, IOC and the International Paralympic Committee supported them and punish Ukrainian athletes. So as I mentioned before, our athletes was not even able to wear an opening ceremony clothes with Ukrainian internationally recognized borders, because the International Paralympic Committee told that it's too much. Yeah, I will definitely continue to fight for freedom in Ukraine and fight for our rights.
Thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me about this before Friday as well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.